Welcome back, guys, to another video. In this video, we have Paul, who's taking his time out of his day to share his story with all of us. And yeah, super happy and super pumped to have him here. Literally 3 days ago, we celebrated his first official placement in the recruitment world for his recruitment business. And I can't wait for him to celebrate his second, third, fourth onwards. And so, Paul, thank you again for taking time out in the morning here and really appreciate for you being able to join.
Absolutely. No, excited to be here. Pumped about my first placement and yeah, hopefully many more to come.
Yeah. So Paul, yeah, if you don't mind, maybe sharing a little bit about your background before you and I crossed paths. I know that you, even before thinking about coming into recruitment, you have a very respectful and inspirational, product career that you've been building as well. And so it'd be really cool for people to hear like what you've done before, what really motivated, inspire you to do something recruiting related, and what your journey's been so far.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So my background, like you were mentioning, is in product. I've kind of since post-college have always worked in digital companies, whether that's, building products from the ground up, whether that's being a producer at an agency, helping other big media companies build products. So I've spent a lot of time around other engineers, other product managers, and other folks who've been in that world. And, even different parts of my career, I've like referred people to roles or introduced people to other folks just out of, the goodness of my heart. And it's worked out a couple times. And I was like, man, now thinking back on those, I'm like, man, I could have had an agreement in place and could have made a little bit of commission on those. But no, it's all good. I think, it was all meant to be. And so, fast forward to about a year ago where I was with my last company and, things basically, we kind of parted ways on great terms. And I was kind of looking for the next thing, interviewed for a bunch of companies, looking at product roles. Market's been, really tough, I think, especially for remote positions where I'm at and all that stuff. And my wife works in the home healthcare industry, and her boss like randomly just kind of like reached out to me and was like, hey, have you ever thought about like, recruiting nurses or something, like just in your spare time? Oh, also at this time, my wife is pregnant. We just had our first. So our son is like, so I'm helping at home. My wife's going back to work. He just reached out to me. He was like, hey, have you thought about, recruiting nurses? And I was like, no, I don't know anything about recruiting nurses. I work in like digital healthcare, but don't know much about that. So I think I looked into it or tried it for about like a couple weeks and was like really just struggling on my own, being like, well, what do I do here? Like what, how do I get things started? And I think through my research, I came across you, Preston. I came across your videos on YouTube because I'm a huge YouTube, nerd. And I love just like, again, just like watching and learning and all that stuff. So started watching some of your videos and then just decided to reach out and was like, hey, like I'm trying to get this thing going. I know that, it's an area that I don't have a lot of expertise in. And I think one of the early conversations, I think it was either you or one of your associates was like, well, you have this great experience in product. Like, why don't you just focus on product and tech folks? Like, it's a competitive market, but it's a great place for you to, use some of the skills that you have. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I guess it sounds obvious, but I was like, I guess I never really thought about it. Yeah. So fast forward, we meet, we get together. I start like learning some of the things that you have in the program and just like implementing some of those great kind of strategies and started reaching out to folks. And honestly, I think there's a lot of really great stuff that you teach as far as technology, like what your agency's doing in terms of like volume and like, automating things. But like some of the first folks that I really started to get some traction with were just old connections and old people that I, knew for a long time that I reached out to and was like, hey, I'm doing this, have a lot of experience in this space and different than, I guess, a typical recruiter that's been doing recruiting for a while because, I can help add some additional value to, the roles that you're recruiting for or why you're recruiting for this role as a senior versus a junior versus, a lead, let's say. So had a few conversations and then joined your program. And I remember the first day that job popped up. I remember because there was a bunch that you had posted and I was like, oh, cool. These are product jobs. Like, I should go after these. This is like my, bread and butter. This is what I want to do. And I just remember seeing one of them pop up and being like, I have the perfect person in mind for this particular role. And, reached out to him and gosh, 5 weeks later or so, he's starting on his first day. So it ended up being just a really good fit and just having him top of mind and being like, oh, this is the right guy for the role. But yeah.
What a great story. And I think maybe in the future, you should also think about possibly going back into healthcare and maybe do some of those nurses as well, because I think that's a very fascinating field to go into. But yeah, I really appreciate you sharing, Paul. It honestly just feels like yesterday where we crossed paths for the first time. And you were like, I just thought of like more seriously now thinking about starting this recruiting thing and starting my own business. And now just only a few weeks later, like celebrating your first placement. This was a product manager. What was the final salary?
The final salary salary was 125
Nice.
K per year. Yeah. And
120.
it's a pretty niche industry too, like a niche type of product. So it's sometimes it's hard to find people who have like genuine interest and are involved in those types of niche industries to find like the right fit of like technical product abilities and then also just like knowledge of the industry. And like, so that was just a really good fit.
Yeah, and then what was the fee percentage? I believe it was like 17%.
It was, yes, 17%. That's
Okay.
right.
So yeah, in a matter of weeks, I mean, I think 125, 10%, you're looking at $21,250. Not too shabby for the first placement, Paul. Super proud of you, man. That's awesome. You
Thank you.
know,
Yeah.
that's awesome. And the cool thing about your story though is, yeah, I think in 2025, everyone's focus is on automation and tools and systems, but it wasn't that long ago where the focus, and it should still be the focus, is on like your relationships and how you can leverage that and stuff like that too. So
Yeah.
that like you're able to find really great candidates, you weren't able to really forget about that, which is what I kind of love about your story. Is like this is what recruiting is fundamentally. Before all the AI and tech stuff came, that's what everyone cares about. But if you can really just like make sure that you never forget like that relationship aspect, and if you know people in your network, it's all about who they know as well, and just have conversations. You just have no idea where that could lead to, whether it could lead to more candidates, more clients. I mean, you picked up 2 new clients by yourself from the people that you know, in addition to having other processes going on at the same time. I know I just kind of really want to focus on this first placement for you because the first is the best. No one forgets the first. And if you can do 1, you can do 2. If you can do 2, you can do 100, Paul, you know?
Yeah.
But I just remember how like when you and I first spoke, you were super like intentional, very with your questions, you know? I think you probably had a natural like level of cautiousness and skepticism, which everyone should have, asking really good questions even after coming to the program. And so to see someone like you know, to be able to kind of leverage what you've done and to get your first placement relatively pretty quick, all kudos to you. And the biggest irony is you went from like product to recruiting. And I always tell people, if I'm not in recruiting, I would be in product, you know?
Right.
And so I thought it was super cool that you did have that product experience. Now, one thing I did want to ask is that people like think that they can just kind of figure out recruiting. And I think you could, right? You could just kind of muscle your way in. You don't need a graduate degree to do recruiting. You don't need any certifications or licenses or anything like that. Conceptually, it sounds pretty simple. It's like, oh, I need to find a candidate. Oh, I need to find a client and put them together. So what was kind of the main difference of you just kind of, you know, doing it out of the goodness of your heart in the beginning, and then after you kind of came into our program, what was like maybe one of the biggest takeaways that you learned aside from like the technology and stuff like that? I'm talking fundamentals, best practices of recruiting where you're like, oh, actually, like, yeah, like this is super helpful or it's really important to know. Real quick, if you ever thought about starting your own recruitment agency or you're a recruiter struggling to land clients, you'll want to check out our coaching and implementation program. Inside, I give you the exact scripts, the outreach templates, and acquisition systems I used to hit over $500,000 my first year, scale to over $100,000 months, and do over $5 million in placements on my own desk. Our students are already hitting $30,000, $50,000, even $80,000 per month or more. Many of them doing it part-time. So if you want to learn the same playbook, the link's below. It's exactly what I use. Now back to the video.
Well, you know, what I can do is kind of compare it to what I was like starting to do in the healthcare space where I felt like really, really lost and was like, it's a different problem where the healthcare space, especially home health, has like a huge shortage of talent. And so like you're trying to figure out where these nurses and PTs and OTs hang out. And like I didn't really know any of that, which again, that might be niche specific. But even I remember I was negotiating like my very, very first contract in that space and realized that the people that like worked in that space, like they could drive their prices and percentages down significantly. They were like very hard to work with. I was like, man, like maybe this is just not the industry for me, but also like I didn't know if that was like good, bad, like, you know, like, oh, okay, maybe it's my first client. So like maybe I just have to like, you know, grin and take whatever percentage they're offering. But I think some of the core differences in like things that you teach and like I think at your recruiter schools, like how to position my experience. And I think that that was like a huge kind of game changer, like finding the right niche that like, again, I feel comfortable in, which again, I wasn't very comfortable in the healthcare space. Maybe I'll go back to that at some point, but you know, finding something that you feel comfortable, that you feel like you actually have some expertise in and making sure that like, yeah, that's an area that you double down on and you go into. And then just the strategies for getting started and like reaching out to people, like how to communicate my skills. And again, like, yeah, you can do that, but it is extremely competitive. I remember actually one of the first conversations I had with another recruiter in my area, like locally, who's been doing product and tech recruiting for a long time. And I don't want to say this guy's a shark, but like he was very nice in terms of giving me advice on the phone, because that's all I was looking for, is just like, hey, like what would you say to someone who's just getting into this space? And he straight up told me, he's like, this is the worst time to be a recruiter recruiter in product and tech. And he's like, I've had my worst year in, and he's been doing this for like 20 years, right? And so I was like, I mean, I didn't take that as like discouraging. I was like, great. Like this guy, for whatever reason, the way that he's been running things has been like not as fruitful as they should be. When, working with you, working with a couple other folks, like people are hiring, like there is business to be captured out there. Yeah, there are people that are crushing it right now. And it has nothing to do with the industry. I think it's just how you navigate like some of these opportunities. And so anyways, I kind of, after that call, I didn't feel really discouraged. I was kind of like, sweet. I feel like this guy was kind of subconsciously trying to tell me to like quit or move into a different, into a different niche or something. And I was like, no, I also know that I have a huge leg up on his approach versus my approach. One's not right or wrong, but like, who would you rather work with, someone who's been on the other side of the table for the last, 10 plus years in product and engineering, or someone who's just done recruiting? So yeah, so that's just some insight into like some of my earlier conversations about getting into the space and like, talking to some recruiters and stuff like that.
It's interesting because I think like when you can go into any sector, there's always going to be people who are struggling and there's always going to be people who are doing well, right? But I think like in recruitment, and you also came in literally at the most transformational time the recruitment industry has faced in decades, Paul. Like the guy that you probably spoke to, he probably killed it for the last 10, 20 years and he's struggling big time now. And that's not just his problem. It's happening to a lot of people who are just used to recruiting one way in the past, right? And so to me, as I told you, it's like, I don't care about the past. I just care about now and in the future, right? And so, yeah, my biggest advice to him is like, yeah, he needs to be open-minded and evolve with the times because like it's changing. But look, you've done your first 20K placement. You have built a pipeline that was like 150K for yourself. You closed 20K of that already. Two questions. What are you going to spend your first placement winnings on, Paul? And second, when are you going to do your second, third, and fourth deal?
So, good question. I'm not sure how much of this first placement I'm going to be spending on, just because, I want it to kind of like stabilize and establish my business and like that type of thing. I think that would feel great just on its own. Obviously, you have, margins are great in this business, depending on how, like what tools you use and all that stuff. So that's good. But I'm super confident about one of my clients that I've been sourcing candidates for, which I think that should honestly close, I feel like, easily next month. Wow. There's no reason why it shouldn't. Just the level of candidates I've been able to bring to them has just been like, I kind of bring them in batches, right? You expect, hey, the first batch at least of people that you're going to get some feedback and say, hey, this person isn't exactly what we're looking for. This other person isn't. They were interested in talking to every single one of the people that I brought forward to them, which is great. So, and then I have another batch I'm about to send, which has some like phenomenal folks, including actually an old high school friend of mine. She is incredible, like, Stanford, Google background. Yeah, so I'm confident I'm going to close that one for sure in November. And then I have another really difficult, I think, founding engineer for a Y Combinator company. That's huge, right? Because I love helping the early stage companies for a number of reasons. One, like their first hire is like so important culturally, and also just making sure they have the skill set, finding the right, person who's interested in really diving into these problems, working really hard. Like they look for really tough candidates, but if you can find the right people, it's great, right? Because the more you set up these companies for success with the right people, right? Like they're about to raise more money. They're going to have more roles. They're going to be like, Paul is the guy who found us these early employees. Like we want to work with him again. So that's really like how I'm trying to kind of build the base, establish my business, is work with these earlier stage companies, find them the right talent and really kind of have that bubble up to, hopefully the VCs and the other folks who, have their preference in terms of recruiters. Like when they, when they invest in these companies, they're like, we want you to spend the money. We want you to grow the business, so that I'm the person top of mind that they're like, work with this guy versus, someone else.
This business can snowball really fast. You just need to do a couple really good placements and then the word of mouth just starts compounding, and then you have more business than you can actually handle, and it feels great, especially now coming into the end of the new year. So Paul, a little over a month ago, like, would you be able to kind of fathom that you'd be in this spot right now?
No way. I mean, like, I think it's not that even that I had the skills, like I know I had the skills, but I think the structure and the support of like regularly meeting with people that are also in the same, like who are trying to do the same thing is really helpful to continue to stay focused, structure my day in a way that like, I can continue working on clients, working on candidate acquisition, like all that stuff is super helpful. Like most people have these skills. Again, if you're, social enough, you're good on the phone, like people want to trust you, right? If you're like, hey, I'm going to usher you through this process. I'm going to make sure that like, we get the best situation for you that you're looking for. That's something that like AI can't really do for you. Like I think that there's still like again lots of like trust related issues. They can help maybe in different parts of the process, but you want to be able to rely on a person and like have a person help you through that whole process.
Paul, I challenge you at least to the end of the year. I would say go for 100K. I mean, you've already done 20K. You're still looking at another 3 or 4 placements to get you just shy of your first 100K in placements. So I say shoot for the moon. You're doing spectacularly really well just now. Whatever spinning plates you have, maximize that. Let's get more spinning plates up in the air. More interviews, more clients will inevitably mean more placements for you. And so
Yeah.
I can teach you so much, but if you don't do anything, nothing's going to happen. But I'm just so proud of you because you're literally distilling like everything, and then just, but more importantly, you're executing and it's showing for itself.
Yeah.
Right? Like
No, thank you.
I'm
Yeah.
not doing these placements for you. It's all 100% you. And so I'm excited for your future, man, honestly. And so, do you have any big goals for next year? Anything that really excites you?
Yeah, well, it's funny. When I started this program, I was like, if I could just do one placement a month, I'd be pumped about that. But now I'm like, man, I think the first month where I get like 100K in placements would be like a huge, huge milestone. So that's like my next, I think, goal is to have a big, 100K a month. And I don't know how many placements that's going to take. Depends on the role. Maybe it's even in just one role. Who knows? Like, there's some wild, there's some wild roles out there that people are looking for help to fill. So we'll see.
Well, it's a good thing I'm only a short drive away from Paul. So when he does do these 100K months, that he can spend some of it on a big party with all of us
Yeah.
and celebrate. But
Nice
I guess
steak dinner.
exactly at the least, Paul, at the least, I'm going to hold you
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
But I guess for people who are just like you, just shy of like a month ago, and you're like, what is recruitment, till to now celebrating your first placement. And I can't wait for you to do, a 2 placement month, a 3 placement month. What would you say to these people?
There is literally no downside to trying something out that you're not sure if it's going to be like a great fit. Again, if it's something that you're curious about and want to try it, like try it, but make sure you're consistent in your actions and give it at least a month, give it a couple months. Like you will have a sense of like whether or not you like this or not. I love picking up the phone, doing stuff on the weekend, talking to candidates on the weekend, catching up with people. Like that's just like in my nature. I enjoy that. So, if that's not for you or if that drains you, like this is probably not for you. But there's literally like very low cost to get started, just a few tools here and there. And so give it a shot, but like really give it a shot. Like really spend your time learning in terms of like best practices. And then this is kind of what I like to tell people who I think are early on in your program. And it's just like, don't get super caught up in all the technology and tools right at this stage. I think the thing that really contributed to my success is I've done things very manually for the last 6 weeks and gotten good at using one or two particular tools. Because I think people come into this program thinking, oh, you just set some stuff up and then you like walk away and then like money just flows into your bank account. That's not at all the case, especially if you're completely new to this. So spend as much time as you can on LinkedIn or wherever you're finding your candidates, talking to candidates, understanding your area, your industry, your expertise. Because even for me, like now that I kind of have these like 5-6 weeks under my belt, I'm starting to talk to the same candidates or like same kind of profile of candidates where I can sort of place them at other roles that I'm hiring at different places. And like that's also like a really helpful compounding thing where it's like you start to build these relationships with people and you're like, I know I can find this guy or girl a job in this industry because their background is phenomenal. Maybe this particular role isn't for them, but I know that there's like 2 or 3 other roles that are very similar. Again, if you're working in the same space. So yeah, that's my advice to folks, especially looking to get started.
Yeah,
like you have to do the work,
You have to do the work, you have to embrace the work, and you can't really appreciate like your driving automatic if you've never done it manually. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so like too many people, they jump in a car and they get too focused on how do I honk the horn? Like how do I do left signal, right signal? I'm like, you should just focus on turn the engine on and just move. That's the most important thing. And then you can always figure out the rest as you go. And that's just the biggest issue where, everyone's so like obsessed about AI and automation. And yeah, like it's great, it's a game changer, but like learn how to do it fundamentally. And then you can always build on top of that and then truly appreciate the technology to like take that foundation that you built manually to the next level, right? And so just really, I think, what really resonated with me is that you can still absolutely get results doing things manually, like building strong relationships. And you're just a testament to that, Paul, which is great. And so I want you to keep doing that. And then you layer on top technology on top of that. Now you're working smarter and faster than as you just stayed manual. manually forever. So I can't wait to help you or to hear from you about your second, third, fourth placement. It's been an absolute amazing experience to help you and to work with you and see you grow. And again, some people like the guy that you talked to is having a really tough time in this business, but look at you. You're like a rocket ship taking off at the hardest economy out there, right? And so proud of you for putting in the work. Keep doing it, embrace it. The last point is recruiting is fun. Like you said, we're just talking to like really smart, amazing people. What's not there to like, right?
Right.
And all that work compounds every day. So keep at it, Paul. Stay consistent. And before you know it, we're going to be having another podcast with you, celebrating your fifth placement, your 10th placement, and who knows how much. And so proud for you in your future.
Thank you. Thank you, Preston. Thanks again for all your help and yeah, your guidance.
My pleasure. And I guess, yeah, can't wait for the next text, Paul.
Thanks. Yeah. Sounds good. Take care.
You too.